Aloha from Hawaii. I am meteorologist Amy Metz, and if you haven't found me yet on Facebook and you use that, you can find me as Weather Woman. Today I posted a water spout. I was out looking, but gosh, I had to take my kids to their babysitter for my classes. And this here instead was captured by a great local photographer here. What an incredible, tiny little bit of a water spout. And also some hail that hit Southern California this last week. So we have quite a bit going on. The major things are in the southern hemisphere, but while I'm touching on Hawaii, you can see a humongously long cold front that's approaching our islands now. So in about a day or two, I still have another chance here to catch a water spout, perhaps. I'm always looking, but the bigger news right now is going on in the southern hemisphere. So I did have some friends on Port Moresby here in Papua New Guinea, the capital. Nice, big, beautiful city that had some very strong winds recently. They had not the tropical storm hitting them, but what is now labeled as a Category 2. Lucas is the main one here to look at that I'll be forecasting. And you can see it has the bigger shield of moisture and also stronger winds. So the bigger story here too is that it could be making a landfall. So a lot of those other storms are tracking over open water, which this one was doing, giving it the ability to strengthen. But now in the next day, we could be cutting very close to what is a sovereign state of France here, New Caledonia. So whether or not this actually makes landfall or not, there's still going to be very strong winds. Right now we're looking around 80 miles per hour with this storm system and plenty of heavy torrential downpours. So quickly looking at the others before I change this view is that we had a low pressure develop at the northwestern part of Australia that tracked downward toward the south and is now weakening. The good news here is that it's losing a lot of its moisture. There's even dry air wrapping into this. So as a whole, that system will be mostly collapsing and won't be so much of a bother to land. But Fiji was actually just hit very badly. One so far known to be dead and plenty of other people missing here. So this storm tracked right over that. And we can see at that time there were 75-mile-per-hour winds. So with these torrential downpours going toward New Caledonia and the same strength of wind, we also have a threat level here that is something to watch. So for now, that storm is off the map as far as tracking over land, and that is the good news there. So what we're looking at specifically forecast-wise before I head back to the northern hemisphere is going to be what is going on with Lucas. So we can see here they're spinning in a clockwise direction, which is opposite from what we're seeing in the northern hemisphere. And looking up at the steering winds is something that I like to do in order to see, okay, how strong is this storm? Where is it going to be going next? You can tell some of those dropped away already. If I go back to wind gusts, which is more accurate with the actual wind speeds when it comes to these large storms, we'll notice that yes, they are nearing the 70 and 80, so it's a little bit under here still, because these are just derived models from satellite products, but it still gives us a really good idea and allows me a global view. So what I do now is I go up a little bit higher, 500 millibars, and we can see that that pressure here is no longer even spinning all the way tight. So that's a good sign that one's dying, whereas we still do see some more clockwise motion here, not all the way wrapping in. So this is a good sign that it's not going to get too much stronger, which is why we're seeing 75-mile-an-hour winds now, and really probably not going to be going over the 80-mile-per-hour threshold there to knock it up another category. Right now this is Category 2 for this part of the world. But the directions is what this level tells us the most, is that yes, this is tracking toward New Caledonia. So it is going to be something that they want to watch there for at least another couple days as far as bringing in torrential downpours, because here the red and the dark, the deeper the red, the heavier the rainfall. We can see the last 2 hours that this is still building and building a little bit with some of the moisture coming in. So there is still moisture feeding in, but those winds are not in total agreement from surface to the top. So we have some factors that will build the storm and some factors that will degrade the storm a bit. And especially when we get closer to land, the more mountains, the better. So that's going to add in some wind shear, reverb some of this backwards, and help deteriorate the storm. But these are still deadly wind speeds with coupling in all of the flooding. Not as much flooding as we saw in Fiji. So it's something to watch, but you know, I hate to think that it's going to be deadly. So as long as everybody prepares, and if you're in those sort of wash zones where things can, landslides can occur, or a really low area that tends to flood, I would recommend getting out of there for now, because for this region, this is right on track with that time of year. And good news here is that solar weather, I have been studying space weather, and so right now we're looking at the sun, and there's not a lot of black spots. There's not a lot of huge bright spots, and those are good things in knowing that there's not going to be extra activity. So last round, when we were seeing all the hail and tornado warnings that just dropped last week in the United States, there was more of fast solar wind going on, adding into lightning, and also not having these big, large CMEs, the bright spots, when they're in this region here, or a little bit on the far side. That can intensify cloud cover and intensify lightning. So the fact that it's down on the low is a good sign that there's not going to be some wild, rapid intensification of these storms. So looking at what went off of, is going off of Australia now, it's lowering and lowering in intensity. So if this were red, you know, or pink, that would be worse. But right now that one's not so bad. And what passed Port Moresby here, you know, that they are in the clear now. Shout out to JYT, DJ at Legend FM. He's the one that asked me about that. Great guy. And so now we have Lucas, though, that is the bigger threat now. So we're seeing here Cat 2. And anything here wrapped around in this pink is what will be gale force winds. Those can do some damage. And now anything in red, the very center, very close to the center, is what's going to be some things that could maybe blow over power lines or take rooftops off. So knowing just exactly how close this will track is to the coastline here is going to be a big, huge factor in whether or not it's destructive, or, you know, hopefully passes by just enough that this little center of redness does not actually go over land. So a wider view now of all the satellite products, now that we got through the big part that could, you know, affect people on land here. I'll be taking a look at what's hitting the U.S. right now. So in the United States, there's no big major warnings out there other than what's just kind of left over, snowing a little more, where more than 2 feet of snow dropped in some of these portions of the Northeast. But more so what I'm concerned with is all of the moisture that's still tracking over Southern California. And this is going to be one of those years where there's extra moisture riding into California, on track with our solar cycles. And La Nina that occurred, where this part of the ocean was a little cooler this year than average. So we had one bridge right around here, Big Sur. Excuse me, it was not a bridge. It was part of the Highway 1, PCH, which rides right along the coast, actually just washed away. And we still have a good couple months of excess moisture riding into that region that could be bringing more problems. And also to Southern California, a lot of this was burned this year, all the way even up into Oregon and Washington. So landslides are a threat right now, and that's going to continue to grow. And every time there's another batch of storm activity, we should be on guard for that. So I do have dear friends that are preparing for that kind of thing right now in Southern California, and unfortunately not getting the help they should from the resources that taxpayers pay for. So they're just out there fending for themselves. And now the next bigger threat, I'm wondering, we've been having a few spin-ups of tornadoes popping off along the Gulf Coast. This is the time of year that Dixie Alley, right around in this part of the southeast, gets more of its tornadoes. And so with this bunch of tropical moisture coming in here, I feel like in a couple days when this whole troughing right here, how you see a U shape, when this big trough starts to head eastward and then pulls moisture up from the very warm Gulf waters, much warmer than what's on land right now this time of year, coupled with some of this northerly wind pushing downward, that collision of air can cause more spin-ups of tornadoes. So in a couple days here before the weekend, but those last couple days before the week, let's say like Wednesday, Thursday, I'm really thinking more Thursday and Friday, it will be time to watch for severe weather in this region. It may be few and far between, but it's something to take a look at on the radar. But checking the big difference between moisture, clouds, and all the water vapor in the air versus actual rain, here it is. So a much bigger difference, but once that system pulls up some of the moisture, that trough pulls it up from here, we could be seeing things developing right along the coastline and intensifying with more and more rain as they train upward northeast. So from here, I didn't see much to talk about with Europe at this point. I'll still, for good measure, cross over here for the global effect, and here we go to get it going again. It's taking a minute to lag, but you'll notice here there's quite a bit more dry air coming in here. Now they had tons of hail that fell, big old hail, not the little tiny stuff that I had been sent from California, but massive size hail this whole year as these storm systems are digging way down to the south, way back up north, and then back across Europe. So there's a little bit of moisture heading over Europe again right now, but not as severe as what just passed. So that pretty much wraps up everything weather-wise for the big major players. And then I'm just over here waiting in Hawaii for another possible round of some water spouts. So it was very, very brief, but I was out there driving this morning across the eastern portion of Oahu, which is this island here. And as these storms were funneling this way, we have some upper level air going in a different direction ahead of the cold front that's approaching. And that's what helped lead to some of these brief, or at least the one brief, very small water spout that hit right about here where that little thing is pointing. So I hope everybody's enjoying the weather. Go ahead in the comments, let me know how it is for you. And let's hope that everybody in Fiji is able to recoup from this. Of course, with people missing, and one dead, that's a whole nother story for some people. So here is just some of the devastation of what Anna did out in that region, and just giving you an idea of how deep that water was. And again, to reiterate with what's next, it's nice that what is with Lucas is not as torrential as what we just saw past Fiji, although there's plenty of moisture out there. So I'll keep watching this region of the world and updating accordingly, especially if something's heading for land. I'm meteorologist Amy Metz. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the day. Enjoy the weather.